Vincent Adepoju is an independent researcher whose interest includes comparative cognitive processes demonstrated through dialogue between visual and verbal arts, religion, spirituality, philosophy, and the physical and social sciences. He is the founder and director of CompCRO's Comparative Cognitive Processes and Systems, the research and publishing initiative institution that helps him further his goals as a seeker of ultimate meaning and ultimate knowledge. I am pleased to welcome Mr. Oluwatoyin Vincent Adepoju.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you very much for honoring me.
The honor is all of ours. I appreciate you having the time and the schedule to come here. And going into our introductory questions, what first interested you in the world of mysticism, aka what is your backstory?
Okay. My interest began from reading about the Buddha in Charles Cornell's world-famous Rebels. I was intrigued by the story of a man who left everything, left family, left wealth, left his kingship, and entered into the forest in search of the meaning of existence. Why do we live? Why do people grow old? Why do they grow sick? Why do they die? What are we doing here? Why should we live? Where are we going to? Where are we coming from? And I was so moved by his determination that I strove to emulate him on that fateful day, one after reading about him. He was described as deciding after years of ascetic struggle. He sat at the bottom of a Bodhi tree and declares that until I reach enlightenment, I will not rise from this place. And on that fateful day in Lagos, on the veranda of our house, I resolved that I too will meditate on the veranda. I will not rise until I reach enlightenment. But my mom called me into dinner that night and I broke my vow and went in. But the vibration, the inspiration of that resolve has remained with me ever since, from that time of as a teenager into the decades after. And I have practiced meditation, reading, ritual, Western spiritualities, both Christian and esoteric, Asian spiritualities, Hinduism, Buddhism, yoga, then various African spiritualities, in order, driven by this quest of what does it all mean? And as if even beyond those questions, a sense of a pull from a mysterious source beyond what I can perceive, but it keeps calling one onward. A kind of inward fire that won't let one rest unless you are asking those fundamental questions, which even if one has not been able to answer, but one has been able to some degree encounter certain depth, convince one that there is more to things than we can see. That's it.
Definitely. Yeah, it's kind of hard becoming a Buddha in one day, right?
It's not easy, my brother.
Oh, man. So thank you for sharing your story. So your teenage experience reading about the Buddha brought you into the world of mysticism in general. Okay. Now, then you started on that, burning path of desire to know the truth.
Yes.
Reading books, researching, and everything that, people do who get that urge. Please tell us, how is the actual process of researching African spirituality unique to you as a result of your life experience and location in Africa?
What has been distinctive in my experience I call it the quest for ultimate meaning in living in an African society, has been the inspiration gained from Benin nature spirituality. Did you hear what I said?
Benin nature spirituality, very important in your own growth.
Yes, it was in Benin as a teenager and in my 20s and 30s that I began to lay the foundations of my quest. And Benin has a culture of sacred trees and groves kept inviolate, and to some degree of sacred forests kept inviolate within the city and the outskirts of the city. And I would meditate on these trees, on these groves. I will spend time within this forest. And in doing that, gradually, my awareness began to expand into a sensitivity to forms of being within nature that go.
I have a question because you mentioned in your introduction that you also had some interest in Western spirituality that you found along the way. Can you tell us more about that?
My exposure. Okay, anyway, I'm a Christian to start with.
Yeah.
And I'm deeply influenced by Christian theology, Christian mysticism. I'm also deeply influenced by Western esotericism, particularly the work of Dion Fortune. And it was Fortune. I'm also inspired by Western romanticism. And the point of intersection between Fortune, romanticism, and my African experience is the belief that nature, or rather that the senses, the sense of sight, the sense of hearing. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. They believe that the senses are capable of penetration beyond what you can ordinarily see or hear and enter into realities that underlie the physical world. Under the inspiration of Dion Fortune, who emphasized the value of relationship with nature, under the inspiration of Dion Fortune, who argues that you can encounter spiritual reality through nature, I began to meditate on trees in Benin and gradually came to spend time meditating on sacred trees, sacred groves, and sacred forests. Good. So as I was saying, my relationship with nature in Benin developed through meditating on trees, forests, and groves. Often sacred trees, sacred forests, and sacred groves expanded my consciousness, began to make me sensitive to something unique about these sacred places, and even led me into visionary experiences of realities within nature, but beyond what one can see. That is the central part of what is unique about my spiritual quest within an African society.
And
it is unique because this is a society that, can you hear me?
I can, yes, sir. We'll put in the chat we can't.
Good. This is unique because this society, Benin City, Benin spirituality, takes pains to locate sacred groves, sacred trees in different parts of the city, enabling one to interact with them. And I was also fortunate to have a relationship with Joseph Ohomina, who was a Babalawo, an adept in the study of Ifa, a Yoruba spiritual system, which can be found in different parts of Nigeria. So I learned from him, very admirable character, very upstanding person.
What makes a tree sacred?
I think it's a delicate question in the sense that whatever you choose as sacred to you is sacred to you. It's a matter of choice. So the question now, the second question would be, let me reframe the question. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I observe that on account of my experience in Benin, anywhere I went in other parts of Benin, outside Benin, villages around Benin, and even beyond Benin, I could identify sacred trees and sacred groves without, even if I've never been to those localities before. I would perceive around them an aura, a kind of presence, something invisible but almost palpable, something which I could see but without, but it is clear I was seeing it just by looking at it with my naked eyes, but it was clear that my vision had expanded beyond.
How long have you been able to see these things?
The aura around the trees.
I was able to identify what I observed. What I used to observe on these trees is that there will be an aura around them, like a field of energy. But it wasn't something I could see with my corporeal sight. It was a range of vision, which was an expansion of corporeal physical vision. So I will ask myself that, how come I am able to perceive a quality in these trees and groves, which are also designated by the people in the community as sacred? Does it imply that I am seeing a quality, I'm identifying a quality in these natural forms that the locals, the people in those localities have also identified in them? Does it imply that I'm actually seeing something that exists in those forms, but which I have cultivated the ability to understand, to perceive, even though most other people cannot perceive them? Did you hear that?
Yes, sir.
So my answer to that question you have asked is, one, you can designate anything as sacred. Your shoe can be seen as sacred. A stone you found on the way can be seen as sacred. But in this instance, I suspect that what is occurring is that there may be a particular quality of nature which is more pronounced in some natural forms than others.
Yeah.
And it is this quality that has made those people in those communities designate those trees, groves, and forests as sacred. Did you get that?
I certainly do. Are you got anything else?
Finally, what would that quality be? I suspect that it is what is referred to as spirit in English. A quality of consciousness, of awareness. There is either something that is conscious and aware within those natural forms, or something that is capable of affecting your own awareness, or both of them. But at the bottom line of it is that there is something in those natural forms that relates to consciousness, relates to awareness. That's what I can say for. And then at times you will find that, anyway, that's the best I can, that's how I can put it for now.
Okay. And it's amazing that you can see these things. Like, how long has that been a part of your consciousness, being able to see these?
I think this must have been in the, what year was that? I think I started this journey. I think I started this quest in the, was it in the 70s? I think it was in the late 70s and 80s that I began these investigations. And that was when these abilities emerged.
Okay. Late 70s, early 80s. Nice.
Yes, yes.
You have any other introductory questions? This is great. So, your experience, you actually get to experience this sacred, right? Like the closest thing we have to a sacred is the local church on every corner.
No, we do not. I have a park.
Your park,
My
okay.
park is full of trees.
Yeah, it's full of trees
That are
that you chose to be sacred. All right, that's true. And your trees, Mr. Adepoju from Benin City, how old would you say those trees would be?
Mm,
Do they have an age? Would that even matter?
mm, I suspect that time plays a role in the sense that the age of some of these trees relates to the dense has a bearing upon the density of this power, of this force, of this energy they seem to be concentrating. And the more they are kept undisturbed, human beings don't go in and out of those places carelessly, the more intense those energies are, those powers are sustained. So I think age has a point. And I suspect that some of the oldest groves and forests will at least be a century old.
Okay.
Others could be younger.
And the reason I ask is like I'm still in the introductory mode, okay? So the reason I ask is really just trying to gauge the status of that spiritual tradition in Africa, the traditional, African spiritual method, let's call it. And so, like, are these trees still kept? Are there still elders who take care of the trees? Do they, present themselves as open to being communicated with? Like, your experience as a researcher and as a practitioner, just trying to just drive home, like, is it different? How different is it? And what can you share?
Okay, how different is it from what else?
Oh, well, I'm comparing it to myself, Western, born and bred and raised, trying to reconnect with Africa that I see, spiritually, and, just kind of looking a little jealous over at my kin over on the continent. They get to be in this space with all these ancient trees and traditions and, so.
Okay, the truth of the matter is, in my practice of African spiritualities, there are two major aspects. Did you get that?
Yes, sir. Two aspects.
There is the nature spirituality I've just described to you, and which I have not engaged in for almost 20 years, because I left Benin. I went to live in England for about 13 years, returned to Nigeria in 2016. And here in Lagos, I'm now living in Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria. Such trees and are hardly such trees are also visible in Lagos, because, for example, near the church near us here, there is a massive Iroko tree which nobody is disturbing, even though it is occupying part of the road. But on account of the busy nature of the environment, it will be hard for me to spend time, for example, meditating on the sacred trees in Lagos, because Lagos is a commercial capital of Nigeria. It's a very busy place.
You said that you wouldn't have the time in Lagos because it's so busy and basically the trees are being overlooked.
Yes, I have the time, but I will need to work out how I am going to spend time meditating on a tree on a busy street.
Right. Yeah.
Because yes, Benin was also busy, but not as busy as Lagos. But there is one such tree I want to develop a relationship with. But I need to work out how I'm going to do it in such a way that people don't see me as odd. Because such relationships are built by you spend time with the tree, you will meditate with the tree, you will even try to interact with you, try to send telepathic messages to the tree. Did you get that?
Yes.
And then see what happens. Although I must let you know, some of these trees are evil.
Interesting.
That
Yeah.
is the sheer truth. Not all are good. I came to this conclusion because there was one tree I tried to communicate with mentally. And in return, I received an inhuman suggestion, which I am convinced could not have come from my own mind. And it relates to certain belief. That inhuman suggestion is related to certain beliefs about such trees in Nigerian folklore.
That's
Making
great.
me so for that reason, I began to avoid that particular tree from that point on. And it was an Iroko tree, believed to be particularly spiritually powerful.
Wow.
Now there is another Iroko tree, very big, majestic, and beautiful, near us here on a street not far from me. It's by the side of a church. I would like to meditate on that tree and see, will I get good ideas? Will I get evil ideas? Let us experiment and see what happens. But I'll need to work out how to perform this meditation without
great.
On a busy, because the street is busy. How can people see me when I'm meditating on this street? How do I make it clear that I am not, how would they respond to my presence? So the method is you go to the tree, you meditate on you interact with the tree, try to communicate with the tree mentally, then you go back home, you visualize the tree and continue the process. And in doing that, in the past, I have found that one may find oneself as if the distance in space between the tree and yourself is being closed, and you are entering into the space of the tree. So I am likely to try that experiment and see what happens. So
please,
you are now, hello?
Please let us know how it works.
Thanks. Then another thing I want to try. Have you heard of Awanyawa in Benin, in Yoruba spirituality?
It would have to be spelled out for me. I really don't understand how to, speak the language, but
good.
Probably not.
Awanyawa, that's the name. Awanyawa. It means our mothers.
Yes, I have. Those are the vultures / witches, right?
Good. Another name for them is Aje.
Okay, yes, Aje, yes.
Yes, there is a beautiful book called Ewe, the uses of plants in Yoruba society, that describes how to become an Aje.
Okay.
It describes, it presents, you can find the book on Scribd, it's online.
Okay.
Not a neat copy, but it's present there.
Can you spell that out as well?
Yes, the book is by Ewe, the uses of plants in Yoruba society. The uses of plants. I'm writing it out.
This is crazy. This is great. Plants. We haven't even gotten into the real.
Everything you're describing, it sounds like how I was raised, what I was raised knowing and just instinctively know how to use the plants and the trees. I have never heard anyone else express these things. When I try to explain it to other people, they think I'm off my rocker. But you have just expressed like everything.
You will. I will be very grateful if, as soon as you are ready, you can tell me your own story so I can appreciate it.
We will for sure, but I do want to, we invited you, right? You're like the star right now, but this does not have to end today, right? I'm amazed that you returned our message, but thank you. We will be looking up this book. I know about the Ajay a little bit, and I wanted to talk about African wordplay anyway. Ajay and Ashe, they sound very similar, but I want to stick to a script.
Okay, what I was saying was that book describes how to become an Ajay.
Okay.
It speaks of a recipe using plants and a particular incantation. So my plan, by the grace of God, is to go to, because there are markets in various Nigerian cities, where herbs, animal parts, and other ingredients used in our native spiritualities are sold. So I want to go to those places, take the recipe with me, buy the stuff, and then go through the ritual and see what happens.
For sure.
The Aje are very mysterious, and they are often presented as bloodthirsty creatures, but also presented as both good and evil. So I would like to see, is it really true that you can become an Aje by that recipe? You prepare the plants, put them into a bucket of water, prepare the plants, say an incantation, bucket of water, and bathe with it. Is it possible? So in terms of what is distinctive about being on the ground in these spiritualities, in my experience, what I have described, but a lot of the time, I also rely on books and develop rituals based upon applying ideas from Western magic to African spirituality.
Right.
And I've developed rituals of initiation into Ifa, Yoruba spirituality, into Ogboni, using that method. So I use both books and nature, relating with nature.
And
so that's it.
Okay. And as I was telling you, Gabby is interested in the Western tradition. I started off in the Western tradition. Obviously, this is where I live. But like right now, I'm far more interested in more Africa and how Africa's the home of humanity. It would have to be the home of all these traditions that we call Western, Asian. You got the Black Buddha, which is my screen of my phone. But yeah, it's like I want to see how Africa does it, what's unique about it, and what it gave to the world. So, and starting to talk about your work specifically, I found out about you by reading. Oh man, I put it in the email, but your work on the clitoris and the Ombongi Society. Did I say that incorrectly? I feel like I said that incorrectly.
Correctly, I think.
So, can you please give us a little insight about your work in that? And my first question to you is, well, no, I'm not going to ask that question. Tell me about your work in researching the clitoris, the vagina in Nigerian, Yoruba traditional systems. If you found anything in any other African tradition, let's see where this takes us.
Okay, thank you. My interest in this subject emerged from my engagement with the sculpture of Ogboni. Ogboni is a Yoruba origin esoteric order that has spread to different parts of Nigeria and to the diaspora.
Okay.
Ogboni sculpture, Ogboni metal sculpture, is always of naked men and naked women. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
And this nakedness, I am given to understand, has to do with the veneration of the procreative functions that enable society to persist. Procreative functions enabled by or demonstrated in the biological union of men and women. I also observe that along with sculptures of what I refer to as Edon Ogboni, sculptures of a male and female pair, projecting this idea of the unity of genders. There are sculptures of individual female figures representing the maternal principle, the earth on which Ogboni is based.
Okay.
And these figures invariably show not only a naked woman, as Ogboni sculptures normally demonstrate nakedness, not only figures in which genitalia is prominent, as all Ogboni sculptures are, but also show a naked woman with a prominent clitoris. And I was puzzled. Ogboni are very conservative. Good. I was puzzled as to why Ogboni sculpture should emphasize that aspect of female genitalia. Since Ogboni is a very conservative society, they are not known to have any relationship to sexuality beyond celebrating the procreative functions. And to the best of my knowledge, I am not aware of any particular role that the clitoris plays in procreation. I have understood the clitoris to be primarily a means of feminine pleasure, not a procreative medium. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, based upon this puzzlement, I began to ask questions, and the questions could not be answered through all the literature on Ogboni that I have encountered. Yes, I could have spoken to Ogboni members we found, but Ogboni generally are very secretive. And at the time I was doing my research, I had not yet made contact with members as I did earlier. So I began to speculate upon the significance of the prominent clitoris in Ogboni sculpture. And much of what I wrote is actually speculative rather than based upon what Ogboni members have to say on this subject. In that regard, I hope I will be able to create time to discuss with them, even though I am not optimistic as to how much they will tell me, because they insist on your joining Ogboni to learn more. But once you join, you are restricted in what you can tell the world on account of their code of secrecy.
Yes, sir. Okay.
So that's what I can say about that for now. Then you mentioned a society in some other parts of Africa. I read about that, and that is one of the very few I have read about, if not the only one, where clitoral veneration is prominent in an African society.
Okay. Okay. That's really interesting, because you just said how secretive the Ogboni society is. It would be the case that if they're keeping it, under such lock and key, maybe other societies would be as well. But I have a million. What do you have anything to say about this?
Manifestation for some people who are like in the spirituality that I partake in, manifestation is strongest with the female orgasm. So maybe that has something to do with it.
There you go. So one part of your research calls the clitoris in the Ogboni society, how they see it, as they title it Oba Inu Aye. Excuse me if I said that incorrectly. So
it's correct.
Good, great. What is the significance of that title, and what else in Yoruba land or Yoruba culture is referred to as the Oba Inu Aye?
Okay, thanks. But before I come to that, can I ask Gabriel a question?
Sure.
Good. You stated, thank you. You stated that in the spirituality you practice, manifestation is strongest with the female orgasm. Am I correct?
Yes.
What spirituality is that?
What spirituality is that?
Yes.
It's just for me, everything just came very naturally. I really just connect. Like I started by just going and connecting to the trees. Everything has been very natural. My spirituality has just been a very natural journey. It's like breathing to me. And I'm very very good at manifestation. And I've realized that manifestation for me is strongest with female orgasm. But I've found that other people, just by accident, that other people also believe this, and this is something that predates written history in this country. So it's almost like I would say I would probably be most associated with being an Age.
Okay.
It would
Thank
probably
you.
be an Age because everything comes very naturally to me. Like I can go in nature and I can determine something that is healing to my body, or I can meditate very easily. It's a lot of things that just come very, very naturally, very easily to me.
Okay. Thank you. Now, can I ask just the last question, if you don't mind? What do you mean by manifestation?
Okay, so if I wanted to, let's say, say for instance, I needed a specific amount of money.
Okay.
I could write my manifestation. I could write the specific amount of money right down to the penny, and I could expect that.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Huh?
I said,
I mean, my manifest, like I said, everything for me is very natural. Like it's just some innate things I was just born with. Nobody taught me. I'm learning now as I've gotten older. I'm learning to understand it, but it's the gifts that I have. I did not know everybody didn't have them. I just assumed everyone had them until recently. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Everybody doesn't have it. And some people work very hard to achieve them, but I'm a person that it just comes very naturally to. A lot of things just come very naturally. Understanding spirituality, like the trees that you were talking about, understanding them and talking to them. And sometimes I get evil things off of trees because I go around and I do talk to the trees, and I'm very specific which trees I touch. And sometimes I get evil things off of trees, and I never heard anyone else express that except for you today.
Thank you very much for these explanations.
You're very welcome.
Thanks. So, do I continue with responding to the question about Obainu-Aye?
Are you done?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, on that Obainu-Aye question, I don't think I know much about it, because in what I have read so far, I'm yet to see an elaboration of that concept in relation to the clitoris.
Okay.
I've only read about its statement, its being so named, but not a description of why it is so named. The only person I know who has developed a similar idea, but in sculpture, is Susan Wenger, who ran a school of sculpture in Yoruba land. She was Austrian, but spent most of her life in Yoruba land, and along with her collective of fellow Yoruba people, they built a sculptural representation of Yoruba cosmology in the forest, in the Osun forests. And in some of these sculptures and architectural forms, one observes spaces that look like female genitalia, in which the clitoris may be seen as prominent in some cases. But she did a lot of writing, but in that writing, she did not specify what she was trying to communicate with that symbolism, although one can speculate as to its meaning, because she wrote much about shrines and sculptures as instruments of generation, of incubation, of fecundation, of growth, like a child grows within the womb. Then you also asked, is there any other phenomenon referred to in terms of Oba Inu Aye
Yes,
in Yoruba thoughts.
that was
The
the question.
only other phenomenon I know that has similar ways of being described, maybe this is the concept of Ori. Have
The
you
head?
come across that concept before?
The
Yes.
head? Yes.
Yes, the head. And Ori has two parts. Ori Ode, if I'm getting it right, or Ori Lasso. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're blowing my mind right now.
Good. Ori Ode or Ori Lasso, referring to the physical head and the brain, the mind, the person we see on a daily basis, going about on the streets, the person we interact with, the person who is a social entity is represented by Ori Ode or Ori Lasso. But they also hold that there is an essence of the self that is not physical, is not limited to social identity.
Wait, are you still
It's
talking?
not constituted by your terrestrial life. Two aspects of the self: the external Ori, the head, which we can see, the physical brain, and the mind representing the social self. All these are understood as temporal. They will pass away with the death of the body. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Good. Then it is also held that there is another aspect of the self that is immortal, that predates birth and transcends death. That is Ori Inu, known as the inward head.
Can you spell that? Write that out.
Yes, yes.
And if you can, let me just make sure we're on the same page. If I'm understanding you right, you're saying the Oba Inu Aye is equated to the Ori.
The inward head.
Wow. Okay.
No, I wouldn't say it is. According to one writer.
To one writer.
The clitoris is known as, yes, Oba Inu Aye. That is the king in the world. Why that is so designated, I don't know, but one can speculate. I have not read of efforts to interpret this, to justify this idea or expound upon it, except what I wrote in what you read.
Okay.
I have not come across any other efforts to tell us more about it.
Are you going to ask these questions to the
idea
members?
of,
sorry.
Say it again.
Now I was asking, are you going to ask those questions to the members that you are going to communicate with?
Yes, it's possible I will ask those questions. I know the people who
Great.
have interest in Yoruba feminist thoughts who may have something to say about that.
I would definitely love to hear how your interview with the Ogboni Society goes, because this is very interesting to me. But please continue.
Very good. I can even give you names of one or two Ogboni members who will be happy to talk to you.
Oh my gosh. Can you put that in the chat?
There is,
I will reach out.
I will. There is a particular one who is committed to promoting Ogboni as far as he's able.
Wow.
So what I was saying was that the idea of a king in the world is also relatable to the Yoruba belief that the center of human existence is Ori. Ori, not simply the physical head, not simply the brain, not simply the personality, but the essence of self that transcends birth, that predates birth and outlives death, and which is seen as the embodiment of human potential.
Okay, so I have a question. If we were to translate Ori into English, would it translate as our soul?
That is one way of putting it. That is a relevant correlation. I know that some people differentiate between soul and spirit. I won't pretend to understand that differentiation. But if you are talking of an aspect of the self that is immortal, which occurs in different cultures,
Right.
we are talking about the same thing.
Yes. Your
Or a
soul. Yes.
similar idea. Yes.
Okay.
So, please continue. Please keep talking.
So what I'm stating is that the idea of the center of human existence, whether terrestrial in this world and beyond this world in Yoruba thought, is attributed to Ori because Ori is seen as the embodiment of human potential. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
I hear you. We hear you.
Yes. Good. Ori is seen as the embodiment of human potential beyond earth. It's a dramatization and expression of this potential. So, because Ori is so understood as the center of existence in every, whether physical on the earth or beyond the earth, one may speak of Ori also in terms of Oba Inuaye, king in the world, as well as I want to now make a formulation. Oba Inuaye, Oba Inuorun. Now, this is my own coinage. Oba Inuaye comes from the language which I quoted. Oba Inuorun is my own formulation at the present moment, indicating king in the world of origins. Because Orun is translated at times as heaven. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
I can hear you, sir.
Orun is at times translated as heaven.
Yes.
Is at times translated as heaven, but I prefer to call Orun the word of origins from which everything originates. So I will see Ori as Oba Inuaye as well as Oba Inuorun, the king in the earth and the king in the world of origins. All aspects of human existence are centered in Ori as understood in Yoruba thoughts.
Understanding is that according to one author, which you make sure to make clear, that Oba Inuaye has something to do with the Ori, something to do with the clitoris. It has something to do with let's say the soul. Let's call it the soul. I call it the Ori. I'm trying to be a little bit trying to keep to Yoruba language if I can, knowing that I know very little of it, and that this would obviously be the reason why the Ogboni Society is keeping this stuff so secret, right? So they're saying that the bottom of you is equated to the top of you. Does that make sense? Is that a thing? Am I stretching?
Okay, let me clarify. What I read,
but you read, of course,
which I quoted in my essay, is that the clitoris is referred to as Oba Inuaye.
Yes.
That is all I read. I didn't read anything more than that.
Let me tell you, Mr. Adepoju, I'm only asking you questions as a scholar, right? I don't expect any miracles, right? I just want to know what you know and where you got it from. And
thanks.
Right. So this is a conversation. I won't label you the guru of gurus if you do not want to be labeled as such. But what you're saying is really bringing things together, because I have been trying to synthesize all of this knowledge, right? As I've been telling you, I've been trying to make linkages between, Yoruba, well, Africa in general, but Yoruba, Bantu, and ancient Kemet, right? Well, you know of the ancient Egyptian idea of the Ka, right?
Yes, the soul, if I'm correct, am I?
Right, it is. In terms of Bantu ideas like the Congo, they have the idea of the Muntu, right? The small person inside of you, right? And
continue.
We say?
Continue.
Okay, and I am trying to link these energy forms, because that's what I'm going to try to label them in my book. I'm going to link the energy form that lives within us all. The energy form that lives within us all. They have different names in all these different cultures. I was looking for the Yoruba one. I could not find it. It looks as if it might be this Oba Inu Aye or the Ori. What do you think about that?
Yes. First of all, the Oba Inu Aye concept. Are you there?
I am.
The question you have asked, that is there anything else in Yoruba thought that can be so interpreted? It's a beautifully provocative question.
We hear you.
Because the answer and lead to the idea of Ori. Did you get that?
You said the idea of Ori. Continue.
No, that the idea of Oba Inu Aye,
Okay.
even though it is not elaborated in the book I read, but you asked the question that, can it be related to anything else in Yoruba thought?
Yes.
Good. It's a beautifully provocative question because it leads to, the question now is formulated as, is there anything in Yoruba thought that can be interpreted as the center of human terrestrial existence?
Sure.
The human life in the material world, because that is another way of interpreting the term Oba Inu Aye, king in the world.
Certainly.
Are we together?
Yes, we are.
Good. And the king in the world of the human being in Yoruba thought is Ori.
Mm-hmm.
And Ori, to the best of my understanding, is the best correlate of the Egyptian concept of the Ka.
Yes, that's what I.
Which, if I am correct, please correct me if I'm wrong, is visualized as a bird.
That's the Ba. The Ka is visualized as raised arms, typically, but it's also a person with raised arms.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put that in the chat.
Very good. So in some, anyway, in various cultures, there is a reference to different cultures all over the world have the idea that there is an aspect of the self, of the human self, that is immortal. Ori is the Yoruba version of that idea. I was saying that in Africa, the Ori idea is the Yoruba equivalent of the belief in that there's an aspect of the self that is immortal.
Mm-hmm.
In Igbo, you have the idea of Chi.
Mm-hmm.
And in your investigations, you have come across Egyptian and Congo correlates of this idea.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, one may argue that the idea of a king in the world, a king of the human universe, in the physical world and the world beyond the physical world, can be described as Ori.
Yes, sir.
So even though in the existing literature, I have not come across any correlation between the clitoris as Oba Inu Aye and Ori, but we can speculatively describe Ori as a form of Oba Inu Aye, the king in the world.
Yes, sir.
And I am also arguing that one may go further and describe Ori as the king in the world and the king in the afterlife.
Sure. Okay.
Because Ori exists before birth and after death. That's why I speak of the term, or I've coined the term, Oba Inu Aye ati Oba Inu Orun. Ọ̀run is the Yoruba version of heaven, where the creator of the universe is centered and where creation originates.
Yes, sir.
So I would describe Ori as Ọba inú ayé àti Ọba inú ọ̀run, the king in the world and the king in the material world and the king in the world of origin. Beyond